and welcome back to another episode of the Zero Empty Spaces podcast, episode 55, with Boca Raton Innovation Campus resident artist Donna Kellman, here from our beautiful studio space at the Brick. If you didn't know about Zero Empty Spaces, myself, Evan Snow, my business partner, Mr. Andrew Martineau, as arts advocates, community builders, and placemakers, started an initiative to activate vacant commercial real estate spaces so talented artists like her could have space to create and collaborate affordably outside their homes. So led to a myriad of win-win-win benefits with the first 31 spaces we've activated now over the last 5 years in 4 states. If you'd like to find out more, you can log on to zeroemptyspaces.com. But the point of the podcast is to connect you with the talented artists like her that make the program what it is. So without much further ado, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in the arts?
Okay. I got started as a little girl. My father had access to a lot of paper, and I would do a lot of drawing, and mostly for my sister, tell little stories at the same time. And so that was the beginning, and I kept drawing for quite a long time. And with the book, it's cartoons. That's cartoons. And went to the High School of Music and Art, which is a specialized high school for art students and musicians, and then went on an art major in college. Got a master's degree in art, and decided at that time it was probably best to be a teacher of art. So I taught in high schools, a few high schools, different high schools, and it was actually a great experience. It's interesting to come up with ideas for students and then decide, why don't I try that? And I would do that also. So it was a good experience. And I taught for about 25 years. Yeah. New York City high schools.
Which ones, if you did?
I started with Seward Park High School in Manhattan. And then I taught at Long Island City High School, because what happened is we had to keep changing schools because they were always someone being accessed, because they would make art departments smaller and smaller. And I taught finally in Great Neck, Long Island.
Oh, wow.
Which was really a treat.
How about that?
That was the best of them.
Any students end up becoming noteworthy, or anybody that
not noteworthy, but several went into art.
Okay.
They did. And what was interesting was that the students who were not particularly good in academics were the ones who were sometimes shining in terms of art, which was very nice.
I'm sure there's a podcast going on somewhere right now where they're like, you know what? It was that art teacher.
Right. Mrs. Kellman.
Did you continue creating on your own throughout that time period?
Oh, yes. I was always doing art. And I had a lot of studios in my retirement. Before that, I would paint at home. And I had a studio in Great Neck. I lived out in the Hamptons. Had my own studio, really one of those sheds that you put together and had as a studio, and lived in Boulder, Colorado.
Oh, beautiful place.
So I had a studio there. So studio is the way I like to work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very nice. And we're glad to have you. And you've been with us now almost 4 years.
Right.
Throughout a few different spaces in Boca Center, and then now here at the Brick. And it's been actually really beautiful to watch your work continue to unfold. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your work and your style and what you like to create?
Okay. Well, I started out quite realistic in my paintings. And kind of got away from a kind of structured style and started to become more abstract as I went along. Part of it was inspired by different teachers, of course, in school. And finally got to a point where I started to be more experimental. And I guess my way of working is I'm a kind of a process painter. A process painter is a person who comes to it without drawings and without sometimes even conceived ideas. But you start to work, and as you work, things begin to change. It's almost like a puzzle. You begin to see different things happening with either color or forms or shapes, and from there you begin to create something. Sometimes it's upside down. I like that.
Right.
Sometimes it comes out better that way, or sideways. That one could work sideways.
This one can.
Yeah.
What mediums do you work in?
Mostly in acrylic, and sometimes with some collage. This one is a collage completely, the one that's mounted on canvases, on pallets. Yeah, yeah. So
that one's great.
Yeah. So I've done collage, a lot of collage, but basically here, I find it more comfortable for me to do painting. Maybe it's the way I'm set up here that doesn't give me that space. So I have collages, but they're home in my other studio, which is in my house.
It's interesting that you do have, right, because there are different processes and different thought processes for when you're going to work on a collage versus when you're going to work on a painting.
Right.
And you have your dedicated space here where you can, although you are pretty clean, where you can get messy.
Really?
Relatively clean. You can get messy. What type of paints do you like to use? What companies?
Well, mostly Winsor Newton.
Those are good.
You see these bottles of paint?
Yeah.
$1.25.
How about that?
In the dollar store. I couldn't believe it. And they're good.
Yeah.
They're very good paints.
And they're vibrant, and then your work is vibrant as a result.
Right. I couldn't believe it. And the two Liquitex.
Yep.
I like Liquitex because I like the caps on the paints because they're easy to put on and off and they don't get all messy. So,
a little bit more than $1 per tube. But
more like $15 to $20 a tube.
But if Liquitex is looking to sponsor an artist, then that's why I like to ask. You never know who's going to be listening.
That's right.
Or Winsor Newton, if they're interested in sponsoring artists as well, we're open to getting more support for the artists. No, it is interesting. I've always found it interesting now that I've traveled some to see how artists' environments and geographies influence their work, because these colors, I'm sure, have evolved from when you were in New York, where it could be a little cold and dark and gray. What do you want the viewer to take away from your work? What do you want to convey to the viewer with your work, or know about your work when they interact with it?
That's a good question. I guess everybody can have their own point of view of what they're seeing. I guess what interests me most, and I hope it comes across in most of the paintings, is a kind of structure. I like structure and form. I spend a lot of time on that, as opposed to the secondary thing for me is color. Color is important, but I think I'm basically interested in how the whole thing evolves. It's almost like a puzzle, and I'm working to balance or to make a particular shape that may or may not appear in another part of the painting. So when it's all done, of course, that's just started.
Yeah, it's coming to life.
Yes, it's coming to life. And actually, it's interesting because what happened was it's a painting underneath, and I covered it with white gesso, but I didn't want it to be completely covered because I began to see some things coming through the painting which were totally different than what I had. So it was a great way to start rather than a plain white canvas.
Interesting.
Yeah. So this is a beginning.
You breathe new life into it.
Yes. So far, it's still breathing.
Okay, and these are great colors as well.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, right, with the forms and shapes and the processes. Who are some of your inspirations as an artist that have inspired your work and trajectory?
Well, I'm very fond of Kandinsky. I like his work.
Okay.
And I like Clay. I like his work too. And I like Gorky, if you've heard of him. I don't know how many people know his work. And I like Tanguy. Tangay. I don't know how to pronounce his
I think
name.
it's Tenge.
Yeah. And Moreau.
Okay, those are some good ones. So you've had multiple studios.
Mm-hmm.
You've been with us multiple times, multiple years. What do you like the most about having a studio to create in outside your home?
Oh, it's the only way to create is in the studio. Even at home, I don't get work done the way I do here because there are too many interruptions. Phone calls, maybe I stop to do a laundry.
Right.
You know, there are other distractions. Whereas here, and I find it's quite quiet here, which I need to work. And everyone is very nice as well. And works out much better. I feel like it's almost a job to go to.
It is.
Yeah.
You're going to work.
Going to work, exactly.
And you're producing work, and you've produced some great work. And since you've been with us pretty much throughout most of COVID, you produced some interesting work, including My Latest Gift.
Yes.
So what did you produce here?
Well, it's a cartoon book, and at that time they called it Corona. They didn't even call it COVID yet. So a lot of the things actually, although very tragic, what happened when you're at home and you're watching things and you're all alone and you're a creative person, you find outlets. So humor for me was the outlet. And I started to do this, and I sent it to a few people, and they said, oh, you should make a book out of this. And so I did. I put it together. I have a cousin who was able to do the work that has to be done for printing, and made the book. I just looked it over again. I haven't looked at it for a while. And
art could be history, art could be storytelling, art could be interior design, art could be comedy, art could be many different things for many different people.
Absolutely.
If they'd like to connect with your art and with you, what are some ways that they can connect with you?
Well, if I get more onto Instagram, that will be one way.
At Kellman.Donna. And how about your email address?
dgk010@gmail.com.
Okay. And you can visit Donna and 19 or 18 other working artist studios here at the Boca Raton Innovation Campus, the former IBM headquarters, just west of 95, and between Yamato and Spanish River. This location, because it's in an office building and the largest office building in the state, they do their first open studios the first Thursday of every month, but because it's the summer and a lot of people are traveling, we're going to postpone the next one until September. So feel free to join us the first Thursday in September. You can reach out to us to make an appointment. The artists will be glad to tour you around the space and speak with you, and even classes, workshops, fodder, conversation, commissions, all the above. And we're just really glad to support you, support your talented neighbors and friends here. It's been a beautiful thing to watch more art grow in Palm Beach County and in Boca. This location was part of the Open Studios recently. So we're really grateful for your support, being part of the program. I would just like to take the camera and show them a little bit of your work in progress, and we'll wrap up here.
Okay, this is my space, and this is my art. Quite eclectic, but there's a lot of interest in what's going on in each painting.
Amen. A lot of color, a lot of diversity. And here, we'll move over to show a little bit of those supplies we were mentioning. Liquitex, Winsor Newton, if you're listening and watching, they welcome the sponsorship of paint and supplies and materials. And here's also that collage that you were referring, or one of them.
Here's another collage.
Oh yeah?
Very tiny, but
oh, very cool. Okay. Beautiful. Well, we encourage you to come by Check out Donna and the other talented artists here at the Boca Raton Innovation Campus, former IBM headquarters. And appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you.